Okay, every pony. I have yet another request this time by WolfX1120, and he would like me to read Hands by Andrew Joshua Talon. That's a pretty awesome name, if that's his real name. And before I begin, I would just like to say, and I'll probably just copy this audio and paste it in the next few videos. But anyway, this is, let's see, I believe the third story someone has requested. And it's another long one. So I'll have to ask you all to refrain from requesting things. Unless the story is, let us say, 20,000 words or less. If it's 20,000 words or less, I will read it for you. But I just don't want those stories to just pile up, and then I forget what to read. You all understand, right? So once I finish one of these long ones, you know, whenever that'll be, you all can request long stories once again. Yes, so now that I've gotten the possibly disappointing news out of the way, let's move on to the reading. So once again, it's called Hands by Andrew Joshua Talon. And today I will read the first two chapters because combined that'll be roughly 5,500 words, which is around what I like to read. So, Chapter 1. Hands, a My Little Pony Friendship is Magic fanfiction by Andrew J. Talon. Disclaimer, this is a non-profit fan-based work of prose. My Little Pony Friendship is Magic is the property of Hasbro and the reinvention of the lovely Lauren Faust. No copyright infringement is intended. Please support the official release. It was a rough bit of sleep I'd had, but then most nights since I got here were rough. The bed was, unfortunately, too short. The town carpenter was working on a new one for me, and I offered what help I could. Frankly, though, my carpentry was basic at best. I could make things with straight angles. Well, mostly straight angles. Anything more complicated than that, though, was a challenge. Cock-a-doodle-doo! I groaned and covered my face with the blankets. I heard the sound of hooves on the wooden floor. I felt the telltale tug of a mouth on the sheets, and fought for a bit when the owner of those teeth before giving up and letting go. I sat up and sighed at the face of my, well, I suppose landlady would be the best way to put it. Landmare might be better. Time to get up. If you don't mind, Fluttershy said with a smile. Mr. Rooster can be very loud, but it's only so every pony can get up on time. Sure, I said, wincing a bit as I rolled my head around my neck. Ow. I'm terribly sorry that the bed is so small, Fluttershy said. That's the bed I used for bears to sleep over. They usually curl up. And you're still so tall. No, it's fine, I said, raising my hands up. It's really fine. I think it's getting better. Really? She asked with a brightness to her smile that was more than a little contagious. I smiled back. Well, that or I've shrunk, I said. I swung my long legs to the side of the bed and stretched my arms up high. I winced again. Oh, ow, definitely haven't shrunk. Here, let me, Fluttershy said. She trotted up to me, and I held out my hands. No, really, that's fine. Nonsense, you're hurting. I can fix it. Don't you worry about a thing, Fluttershy said soothingly. A bit too soothingly. I scooted back on the bed, trying to get away from the butter-yellow Pegasus. I would just like to say I'm tired of everyone describing her as butter-yellow Pegasus. It's a dangerous business going out your door, they use that I swear, every page. At least once every page. The butter-yellow Pegasus. Come on, people, be more original. And there's a little rant. I hope you enjoyed it. Anyway, back to the story. No, I'm great. Last time was... Her forelegs wrapped around my neck. Her face was close to mine. Dangerously close. Her very warm, kind face with beautiful eyes. Look, I'm not a pervert, but when you've been on an alien planet for a while, without any female company of your own species, and a few ideas pop into your head? Just one. She flew around in a half circle, turning my head. My eyes widened and any unusual thoughts flew out of my head with a resounding crack. Oh God almighty, why? It's okay, it's okay. I've worked with primates before. That's what you said last time. Here, let's try this. Crack. Gah! Oops, may have done that a bit too hard. Needless to say, my first stop after breakfast was the carpenter's office, and then the mortician, because I was sure I was now dead and little more than a reanimated corpse. We stopped by Twilight Sparkle's treehouse, a pleasant enough spot in Ponyville, which was filled with pleasant spots. Despite the resemblance to Earth flora and fauna, my allergies hadn't been going crazy with so much pollen and fur in the air. Otherwise, I'd probably have died the moment I arrived. Hell, who knew if there was some pony alien virus or bacteria or whatever just waiting to kill me? I had to have a sense of humor about this. The purple unicorn smiled brightly as we entered, both on all fours. I didn't have much choice. I sat up into a sitting position, Indian style, to keep my taking up of space to a bare minimum. Good morning, Andrew. How are you doing? Twilight said. All right, I said pleasantly. Back doing better? She asked. I didn't look at Fluttershy, who I knew would be blushing. Yes, much better. Because I have been studying spells to help. A nearby book developed a glow and floated in front of me. It opened, and I was given several views of the anatomy of apes. There's a veterinarian named Dr. Wolf, who's developed several healing spells, chiropractic techniques, and... No, I'm good, I said with a smile. Really, good. Twilight frowned. Did it hurt before? I've been working hard on getting it right. Maybe you should save it for when I'm near death, I said quickly. The pain won't be as big a deal. Twilight gave the pony equivalent of a shrugging grin. Certainly. She smiled broadly, and several items, pens, papers, recorders, came out, all glowing. Now, shall we resume the examination? She asked sweetly. I looked over at Fluttershy, trying hard not to whimper. She smiled back comfortingly. Don't worry, I'll be here, and Twilight won't hurt you on purpose. And we're not even examining your brainwaves this time, Twilight said happily. I sighed and slowly nodded. All right. What would you like to know? Well, last time you spoke of politics, and we found many similarities, Twilight said, even down to the colorful language you used for your current leaders. We have found parallels. I guess politics is similar even across the universe, I said gamely. What do you want to know this time? Something I've wanted to get to for a while now, and I think it might be as significant to your society as ours, Twilight said brightly. Oh, what? I asked. Twilight grinned. Sex! Okay, I'm gonna go now, I said quickly. Twilight frowned. Oh, come on, there's nothing to be embarrassed about. I even learned a spell to make you feel more comfortable about it. What could possibly make this more comfortable subject for me? I complained. Poof. Now sitting on her knees, a curvy purple unicorn girl, like out of every furry's fantasy, appeared. She smiled brightly. Does this help? Twilight asked. Oh, my, Fluttershy gasped. I stared for several long seconds. No. She was just a bit caught up, and you did draw those pictures for her. Fluttershy tried as we left the treehouse. Ponies trotted everywhere, while a few Pegasi flew above. It was a peaceful day, full of bustling in the marketplace. It helped distract me from the disturbing situation in the treehouse behind us. Not that I wasn't tempted. Let's be honest. Away from contact with any one of your species for, months at least? Surrounded by aliens who were cute, cuddly, who could turn into a reasonable facsimile of a human woman with similar anatomy. Actually, it was because of that I reacted so strongly. Look, I'm not James T. Kirk here. Frankly, it's just plain freaky. Hence, no, I said flatly. You could just write about it, Fluttershy suggested as we continued on our way into the town proper. I'm just fine. Sex is the last thing I want on my mind, I said. Oh, all right, she said with a sigh. Great. I sighed back. Oh no, the horror! Cried a familiar voice. I looked over at an elegant purple and white building. I was running, automatically, for the building as another cry came from it. "This is terrible!" I'm coming, I panted. I grabbed the door handle, yanked it open, and slammed my face into the door arch. Gah! And down I went like the great big stupid ape I was. I groaned and rubbed my forehead. Ow! A white face filled my vision. "Oh, Andrew, come quickly, please." Ow, what is it?" I groaned, sitting up as she got out of the way. "It's positively dreadful. Come quick." She galloped into her shop. I followed on all fours, but my head held high. I was determined to keep as much dignity as I could. Through the shop, which was filled with clothing on mannequins that looked like merry-go-round horses, which wasn't as weird as it was when I first landed, the white unicorn led me to her back room. I looked around, alert for any danger. My hand slid to the knife I had taken carrying around on my belt, just in case violence was required. Okay, I wasn't great at it yet, but after figuring out how to catch fish with your bare hands and a knife, I was reasonably sure I could be a little intimidating. "What is it? What's wrong?" I asked. "It's absolutely dreadful," Rarity said earnestly. She pointed to the sink. I blinked and looked down into it. "There's something clogging it," she said. I stared in disbelief. "What?" "Well, I can't very well risk using my magic on it. I might break something. But you have wonderful hands." I sighed. I moved my hand to my belt and pulled out a long, thin scrubbing brush. Oh my, you took off so quickly," Fluttershy called. "Is everything all right?" "It's just fine," I grumbled, threading the brush to the sink. Rarity smiled. "Oh, thank you. Tell me, when you're done, could you please take a look at my bathroom? It's very embarrassing, but—" I sighed and thrust the brush in and out, a lot harder than I had to. We emerged around lunchtime, my hands scrubbed raw. Fluttershy walked alongside me, offering a consoling smile. At my belt, my money bag was a few bits heavier. "Thank you, darling," Rarity cried, waving a hoof after us. "Remind me to design something wonderful for you in return." "Yes, thank you," I sighed, waving my hand back at her. I headed off, still rubbing my hands. I winced. I really should have worn gloves. Who the hell makes it so you have to use your whole body weight to get a nut loose? "Oh, well, Rarity is very thorough when it comes to fixing her home," Fluttershy explained gently. "It can never be tight enough." "Except when it's too tight," I grumbled. "So, what do you need me to do?" "Well," Fluttershy smiled, "I need a bit of help with a very stubborn patient, who is oh so unwilling to just come in for a checkup." "Oh? How stubborn are we talking?" I asked. "Well," Fluttershy said thoughtfully, "so stubborn I might need a means of, attracting her out." I blinked. Several times. "Fluttershy, if this has something to do with sex—" It doesn't. Attract was a poor choice of words. I should have said—" "Yes?" I asked flatly. Fluttershy coughed and looked aside. "Bait?" "What?" Please for me?" Fluttershy asked, her eyes big and shiny. I groaned, holding my hand to my forehead. I sighed. And this is why I found myself hanging upside down from a tree branch, my feet in leather straps, my arms hanging beneath me as I swung slowly back and forth. I really need to stop saying yes to her, I grumbled. I sighed and looked around. Come on, come out wherever you are. There was a rumbling nearby, and a rustling of several trees. Almost, Fluttershy whispered loudly. Try to look more delicious. I rolled my eyes. Look, I'm a big, juicy human being. I haven't been able to eat a lot of red meat, so I'm as tasty as I'm ever gonna get. Because unfortunately, this stupid planet has sentient cows, and I can't eat anything that thinks or talks. Andrew? Fluttershy said. I'm big and fat. Well, I was fat, and now I'm a little husky, but it'll add flavor, like a nice marbled piece of steak, which I would really love to have. I envy you right now, I continued. Come on, you fat, gluttonous piece of... Out of the trees, a vast roar came forth. A huge mass came through. A huge prehistoric mass. Crap? I squeaked as a giant tyrannosaur-like monster came forth. It was dark green, with its top covered in black scales like a crocodile. It growled at me in advance, every footstep making the earth tremble. I didn't mean it! I didn't mean it! I didn't mean it! I screamed as I sat up, grabbed into the rope above, and frantically climbed. It had been a while since gym class, but you'd be surprised at what motivation a T-Rex can inspire. The great monster came up right underneath me, sniffed, and looked up with its vast jaws gaping. I looked down and climbed faster. Oh God, I was kidding. I'm not tasty. You don't want to eat me. I'll taste like I wet my pants, I shrieked. The monster roared, the smell of its breath nauseating. I shuddered, my eyes widened as it crouched. Its tail waved as it prepared to jump. This is it, I thought miserably. I'd die eaten by a T-Rex on a crazy alien planet ruled by ponies, and I can't even brag about it. No! Fluttershy's voice came forth, loud and clear. The T-Rex looked down at her. I gaped in horror. No, Fluttershy, run for it! Fly! Fly, you stupid pony! No, you've been bad, Fluttershy growled at the monster. It roared in rage, her hair whipped back by the force. She stood her ground and glared. Do not take that tone with me, she admonished. You said you would return for your checkup. You've been avoiding me, and that is not good for you, or for me. The T-Rex growled again. Fluttershy advanced on it, her nose pressing into its massive schnoz. The T-Rex's growl became uncertain. Now, you're going to come back with me, undergo your checkup, and then I'll have a nice, tasty fish for you to eat, she said with a smile. Poor thing beached itself and died, but it should be tasty. She glared. Understand? The Rex whimpered and nodded. It turned and made for Fluttershy's cottage, the earth booming underneath its feet. I stared in disbelief at the retreating monster, and then at Fluttershy. I'm sorry about calling you stupid, I managed. She beamed at me. Perfectly fine. I should have explained the whole plan, but, I was afraid you wouldn't have. She looked at the ground. Gone along with it. Oh, well, I nodded. I see. Good thinking. You did very well, Fluttershy said with a smile. Maybe you could help me again? Maybe, I said, wiping the sweat from my brow. I paused. Could you get me down, please? On to Chapter 2! Watching a pony give a gigantic Tyrannosaurus a physical is... well, it's a unique experience. It's kind of hard to describe in some ways. This tiny Pegasus flying around this massive predator, asking questions and getting responses in the form of rumbles, bellows, and growls. Fluttershy even examined the mighty beast's teeth with the same precision as a dentist, flying into its mouth at one point. Well, you're in pretty good shape, Fluttershy said at last. But try to get more soy in your diet from plant eaters that eat it, and don't hunt so close to Ponyville. You don't want lightning shot at you again, do you? The Tyrannosaur rumbled a negative, and then looked over at me. I stood very, very still, hoping he wouldn't see me. I mean, okay, slim hope, but you can't blame me for trying, right? That stupid movie. The T-Rex growled, and Fluttershy nodded. She looked over at me as well. Oh, I'm sure he didn't mean those things, Fluttershy said with an encouraging smile. But he'd still be willing to apologize. I mean, if you want to. Apologize? Sure, I said quickly. I didn't mean to call you fat and gluttonous. Very sorry. The monster seemed to accept this, and with a turn of its mighty head, it headed back into the Everfree Forest. Fluttershy smiled brightly at me. See, that wasn't so bad. See, was that so bad? I crossed my arms over my chest and scowled at her. I still could have been eaten. Oh no, I wouldn't have let her, Fluttershy said with a smile. She then frowned and rubbed her hoofs together, looking nervous. You didn't think I would you? I sighed, reached over and patted her head. Of course not. I mean, not for very long. She sighed happily as my fingers brushed over her scalp, and I quickly pulled my hand back. She actually pouted. You know, you can make a lot more money with your hands doing massages than just, handyman work, she suggested as I turned and headed for the cottage. She followed along, hovering so her eyes were at my level. I avoided making contact, though. Yeah, and then I'd get 100 mares like Twilight wanting to do science with me, I said flatly. Fluttershy giggled. Oh no, she just wanted you to feel more comfortable. After all, you did help her, relax. My hand met my face. The incident was not as risque as it sounded, really. I had recently found myself in Ponyville with nothing more than the clothes on my back and quickly useless cell phone. I had been allowed to stay at Twilight's treehouse while she did research, to live off her stipend. To be honest, that didn't sit right with me. I hate living off of other people. Being a freeloader really, truly bothers me. To the point I have done stupid things to make money and prove myself useful. In this case, during a late-night study session where Twilight had heavy bags in her eyes, I had volunteered to give her a massage. A nice, friendly, simple massage. I'd given them to my girlfriends, and the general consensus was that I was pretty good at them. Not that that was on my mind when I was set to relaxing Twilight. No, not at all. At least, not until she let out a very throaty, very human, very aroused sounding moan as my hands had worked out the kinks in her back. And then another, and another, and another. And then I stopped, but she insisted that I keep going, and I locked myself in the bathroom. Well, to avoid a long, uncomfortable story, I moved to Fluttershy's home. Let's just have lunch, and then I'll resume work, I mumbled. The butter-yellow Pegasus nodded, and we were bound for the kitchen of her cottage. Fortunately, the next job was quite straightforward. Howdy, Andrew, the orange pony known as Applejack greeted as I stepped into the porch of the Sweet Apple Acres farmhouse. I smiled back and nodded as I bent my neck and entered the house. Admittedly, I got into my hands and knees to enter several other houses when I didn't need to. It was a bit of a habit. Really made me seem less intimidating. Applejack, though, couldn't be easily intimidated, so I didn't have to get down on my hands and knees around her. She could easily knock my block off, after all. Howdy, Applejack, I returned. What do you need done this time? It's not the plumbing again, is it? Oh, no, nothing like that, she said. She turned and trotted into the living room, leading me to an old, sanded rocking chair. It's Granny Smith's rocking chair. Oh? I kneeled down and examined it. The leg was broken. I sighed. I could glue it back together. It wouldn't take too much. Add on some duct tape and she should be fine for a while. I shrugged. I could just replace the leg entirely, but, the carpenter in town charges me for the use of his tools. Well, a little duct tape never hurt no pony, Applejack mused. But the way she rocks it? Yeah, I nodded. Well, I'll keep it down as much as I can. Shouldn't be too much. Applejack nodded with a smile. Sounds good to me. I was wondering if you could do something else for me while you were here. Sure, what? I asked with a smile. Applejack winced and stretched out her right back leg. My back leg. It's been stiffening up something fierce. Mind taking care of it? Well, I hesitated. Applejack gave me a flat look. Something bothering you? Well, if this is about you and Twilight, you can tell your mare friend I ain't out to steal you, she said with a wink. I gaped at her and shuddered. What? She laughed, pulling her hat over her face to contain her giggles. Oh, your face. That was horrible. That was probably like the worst acting I've ever done. Anyway. I scowled. That is not funny. Little funny, Applejack snickered. You didn't see her face when you came running out of her house. I didn't have to. I was wearing it, I grumbled. Come on. I'll throw in a few bits for it, she said. I sighed. All right. I moved to the couch and sat down. Just please, don't let it get around. Applejack chuckled. Not a word. She turned around and backed up, lifting her afflicted leg up. I sat it down in my lap and brought my hands down on it. I rubbed up and down, very businesslike. Oh, Applejack groaned. I grimaced and found the stiff muscle. I applied the massage, very mechanically, very focused just on that one muscle. Ah, would you please stop that? I begged. Applejack coughed and looked to the side. Sorry, she mumbled. I sighed and focused again on the job at hand. Hoof. There was a joke in there somewhere, and I really wanted to make it. It would be less uncomfortable than this situation. I mean, what the hell would any pony walking here make of this? Applejack? There's some pony in there? An old Waverly voice asked. I opened my eyes and looked over at the door to the kitchen. Old Granny Smith hobbled into view. Just getting a leg muscle worked out, Granny, Applejack said with a smile. Yes, hello, Granny Smith, I said with a cordial smile. Grandmothers were the same everywhere, killing any possible sexual tension dead. I mean, not that there was, damn it. Granny hummed and trotted over slowly, coming right up to the side of my lap. No, if you want to relieve the tension, she took my wrist in her hoof and pressed my hand down on her lower flank. You press here. Applejack gasped. Her legs snapped up and my vision was filled with stars and flying debris of wooden wall. Or was it that other muscle? Granny asked, quiet through the ringing in my ear. I wondered if I died. I mean, when I ended up in Equestria, I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. I'd woken up in a beautiful meadow, wildflowers stretching as far as the eye could see, and gorgeous mountains in the distance. A bright blue sky with only a few clouds above, and the sun shining brightly. More than all this beauty was the fact that my allergies seemed to be non-existent. I could look upon the full beauty of heaven as it was meant to be appreciated, like in the Narnia books. Then a giant monster had attacked, and I had run screaming through the forest like a total spaz, crying out, God, what the hell is your problem? Didn't I suffer enough while I was alive? Which was when I ran into a purple unicorn, who scared off the horrible monster with a blast of light from her horn. I was thus wondering if I was not, in fact, dead, but rather on drugs. I never even tried pot before. Give me a shot of something hallucinogenic, which pot was not, and I might say anything. But no, I wasn't on drugs. I was on another world, ruled by talking magic ponies, an unknown distance from Earth. It could be in another universe for all I know, which seems kinda lazy. What, our universe isn't big enough for a planet ruled by talking ponies, who speak English, with similar stars to ours? Hey, I'm just saying. It's somehow less depressing to think that I'm just in a different part of the universe than in some other universe entirely. Andrew, can you hear me? I managed. I slowly opened my eyes. I saw the concerned faces of Applejack, Fluttershy, Twilight, and Nurse Redheart. Judging from the smell and look of the room, I was in the hospital. Murg? I tried, before realizing I couldn't move my jaw. My eyes widened. Murph? I'm sorry, so sorry. Sorry, Andrew, Applejack cried. I didn't mean to break your jaw. Murph? Nigger? I managed. Don't worry, it won't be for long, Nurse Redheart said with a smile. Miss Sparkle used magic to speed up the healing. Well, I was coming up to Sweet Apple Acres anyway, Twilight said modestly, rubbing her cheek with an embarrassed smile. She glanced at me and coughed. Don't look at me like that. I wasn't trying to do anything. What kind of... Redheart asked, but something fell over in the back. Oh my, something seems to have fallen, Twilight said. Redheart frowned, but she headed back to check on it as Twilight smiled nervously. I glared at her, as did Applejack. So, I'm gonna do some research to see if I can help you heal faster, Twilight said with a smile. Don't you worry, she trotted out. Applejack sighed. Drop some alien and strange in front of her and she goes nuts, the apple farmer said. Really, I'm sorry, Andrew. Didn't mean to kick you. I managed to nod to her, and a wave of my hand to try and let her know that there was no hard feelings. Applejack sighed. Good. Don't worry. Y'all will have a nice big heaping pile of apple family cooking waiting for you when your jaw's all better. She smiled cheerfully and nodded, before heading out. Fluttershy smiled and nodded as well. I'm sorry, but I have to go as well. I've got work to do with some nice fluffy bunnies. Don't worry. You're covered for rent for the next month, though, she beamed. Applejack paid me. Well, that was nice of her. I waved at her too, and she headed out of the hospital room, the door closing behind her. I sighed and leaned back, trying to relax. After all, this wasn't too bad. I wouldn't be out long. My rent was paid up, and I wasn't in the hooves of Twilight. Still on an alien planet far from home and filled with confusing feelings with a broken jaw, but still, could be worse. Much worse. Funny. Nothing was happening. Maybe fate had more self-control than in my universe. World. Whatever. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath. I sat up and looked around suspiciously. No, nothing. Just the opening and closing of the door as Nurse Redheart slipped out. I sighed and laid back, my head hitting the pillow. "Hi!" said a voice right next to me. I jumped, nearly toppling out of the bed if not for the guardrails. I looked over with horrified eyes at Pinkie Pie, who'd been lying in bed next to me with a bright grin. "Surprise!" she said, jumping out and throwing confetti in the air. "Don't you worry, I'm here to cheer you up." She grinned and pulled out a cake from behind her back. "Starting with cake!" I stared at her. She grinned back. I stared longer and pointed to my jaw. Her mouth made an O of understanding, and sheepishly she put the cake behind her back. "Oh, sorry, forgot." She rubbed her chin. "What are some fun things we can do since you can't make any noise?" My eyebrows rose as a little smile came over her face. I backed up into the end of my bed, my hands held up in front of me as she crawled into the bed. "Don't you worry about anything, Andrew. Nurse Pinkie Pie is going to make everything better," she grinned. Sometime later, Nurse Redheart returned. She dropped her clipboard as she looked into the hospital room, specifically at my bed. Miss Pie." "Heya," she cried, waving her hoof. She sighed happily and leaned back on my lap. "Just helping to lower his blood pressure, nurse." I grumbled as best as I could with my broken jaw as I continued to rub her belly. Miss Pie, that's cats, not ponies," Nurse Redheart said. "Oh, why should they have all the fun?" she asked. My free hand I used to cover my forehead as a serious headache came on. So, a crazy pink pony insisting I rub her belly for all eternity. I've had fewer dreams that weren't that weird. Oh, so anyway, Poundcake did this really neat thing with his wings so he could have a couple of paper Pegasi fly information with him, and then I realized Pumpkin Cake was actually flying them with him. So they've learned to work together to have fun, rather than be evil. So I was like, wow, that's great! Mr. Cake, though, wasn't happy about it. He had a paper Pegasus stuck in his hat. I'm in hell, I thought flatly. I'm in hell. I have to rub a girl's belly for eternity, and I can't get sex out of it because she's not human. Well, I could always ask Twilight to fix that. No, 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 no! I looked at the window and saw a blue Pegasus with multicolored mane and tail flying nearby. My eyes widened. "Woof, woof," I waved frantically. "Woof!" "What is it?" "Oh, Rainbow Dash! Hey, Rainbow Dash!" Pinkie screamed. I covered my ears and groaned as the blue Pegasus flew in through the window. She landed on the floor, her eyebrows raised. Pinkie?" "Hey, Rainbow Dash, I'm making Andrew feel better by having him rub my belly." "Oh, I think you might be trying a little too hard," Dash said. Pinkie laughed and waved her hoof. "Ah, come on, I'm not, am I?" She looked at me with big, teary eyes. Oof, oof. I managed to nod. Pinkie sniffled and held her hoofs to her mouth. Really? She sniffled. I groaned and looked up at the ceiling as best as I could with the brace on my jaw. Dash laughed and patted Pinkie on the shoulder. "It's all right, Pinkie. I'm sure Andrew is just tired, right?" I nodded again, as best as I could with the jaw brace. Pinkie wiped her tears and smiled. "Well, that's all right. I'll see you later. Get well soon so you can eat your cake. Bye." She waved and bounced out of the door. I sighed in relief and looked over at Rainbow Dash, who was looking quite sympathetic. "Sorry, she does that," she consoled. I waved my hands. "I know, you don't hold it against her, but she can be sensitive," Dash said. I nodded. "Now, since I'm here," she said cheerfully, "I need your hands." I stared at her. Dash shrugged. "What? It's your jaw that's injured, not your hands." She held up a jar of pickles. "Can you get this open?" I got on my knees, crawled over to the foot of the bed, and pulled up my chart. I flipped the pages and showed it to her. I pointed to the line that stated "bed rest" several times. "Oh, come on, it's just one little jar I'm asking you to open," Dash complained. "Come on, please, just one." I sighed again. I put the chart back, sat back in bed, and held out my hands expectantly. Dash smiled and hoofed me the jar. "Thanks," she said cheerfully. I took the jar into the crook of my arm and gripped the lid tightly. I turned it hard. Nurgh! The lid popped. I held the jar to her. Dash scowled. You can't just remove the lid entirely? I scowled at her. Dash coughed and held her hooves up. Never mind, I got it. She took the pickle jar with a smile. Thanks. So, can I get the mayonnaise jar open next? I glared. Kidding. Well, there you go. 2 chapters, and I must say I really enjoy this story. Mostly because it's a comedy, and I freaking love comedies. Everyone else wants me to read all these serious stories. Why don't you people want to laugh? Ah, well. So I just noticed the story is actually incomplete. I guess I'll be reading this for a while then, won't I? Not that I'm complaining. Anywho, if you enjoyed this reading of, Hands, be sure to comment, rate, and subscribe. And again, I will tell you all, no more requests unless the stories you are requesting are 20,000 words or less. Like I said, I just don't want all these stories to pile up. But, 20,000 words or less, I can knock that out in a day or 2. Easy. But yep, that's it. So until the next reading.